My name is Tim Trono, and I'm back with John Bannon, and we're discussing his new 2 DVD set, Bullets After Dark. Thanks for coming back with us here, John. One of the things that I've noticed about the DVD set and your presentation is you're not really performing. It's interesting. I just had a talk with Paul Harris, and Paul has said he's gotten older and his style is more conversational. I mean, it's not about, here, let me present something to you. It's more having a conversation with somebody. And that's where I notice your style has kind of gone as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. That's a deliberate choice on my part. And it started a number of years ago where, the most of the magic I do is not in a formal situation where I'm at the end of the table and I've got my close-up pad and the music and all that kind of stuff. But it is more or less in a conversational surroundings. And so I like to structure my presentations as if they are a conversation. And I actually like to take it one step further and this is called behind the curtain. And I have a presentational strategy called peek behind the curtain, where you act, the presentation of the trick is actually letting the audience in, or supposedly letting them in, on some kind of interesting unknown aspect about magic or card tricks or whatever. Really part of the presentation sounds like part of the conversation, and it's really hard. Now all of a sudden you really can't divorce the two. Mm-hmm. Is it conversation? Isn't presentation? Is he being a magician, or is he just talking to me? And I think that's a very interesting dynamic and a valid way of presenting card tricks, especially in this kind of modern age.
Yeah, and what Paul was bringing up, which was interesting, and I think it really applies here, is it makes it more believable. I mean, when you're out performing and you're on, there's a certain sense of disbelief. But as you said, I mean, it's an interesting point. It becomes kind of blurred. They don't know where it's the truth ends and where the fantasy begins, basically. Right,
and one of the things that I have done as I get older is sort of steer away from the fantastic. If I'm going to make something vanish, it's not because of a magical power. It's just because I'm doing something that they don't know about. Mm-hmm. Okay? And it's not really a vanish. It's just sort of, it's here one minute and not here again. So it's not trying to exactly take the mystery out of it, but try to put it in terms that it's easier for the audience to actually accept as being real. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because nobody believes the ball actually disappeared. So why not call it something different, and put them in a position of having to decide what to believe, what you're saying is true or not. Now, perfect example of this is Darren Brown, right? For every single thing he does, he has an explanation that he tells you about and expects you to believe it.
Right.
And now it's up to the audience to decide, well, should I believe it or shouldn't I? Mm-hmm. And that is a very interesting position to put your audience in.
Going back to the DVD set and relating it to this conversation, can you describe maybe one or two of your the pieces that you prefer more, more of your favorite pieces, and how they fit into this?
Let's see. A good example is the Ace routine, for example. Ace tricks are 4-ace assembly tricks are very difficult to come up with a sort of a reasonable presentation for, I think. And so the one I adopted in the DVD is, all right, this is what I did in order to qualify for this particular rank that I achieved. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that on its face does not sound implausible, or maybe it does, but it's close. And in a conversational standpoint, which when you're like my age and gray, people they don't know not to believe that, and they're kind of interested in it. So this is the peek behind the curtain aspect of it. Mm-hmm. I also cloak the trick as a classic trick of magic, and like I talk about on the videotape, calling something a classic gives it a reason. It gives you a reason to perform it all by itself. I mean, it's a classic for a reason in order to do it. So when you call something a classic, that puts a framework around it where you can just do the trick without, adding on a whole bunch of quote unquote presentation to it. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, exactly. And on the DVDs, you'd have these segments, so it's not all just trick, trick, trick. I mean, there's a look into John Bannon and his thinking on the DVDs, and I thought that was pretty valuable. I mean, it was a good insight.
This was part of Owen's sort of vision as to what kind of product he wanted to put out, and I actually enjoyed it. A lot of it sort of forced me to think about things in a way that I could articulate them rather than just have them floating around in my head. So it was valuable for me as well. Mm-hmm. Hopefully there's not too much talking head on there for most people, but there is some.
No, that was actually one of my favorite parts of the DVD. I noticed that over the years, since I've seen you here and there at a convention and on this DVD set, you're more focused on card magic. Because if you look at some of your earlier work, like Impossibility, there was a lot of coin stuff, flash paper, coin boxes, other effects, ring and string. Why the change, or is that an accurate assessment?
It's completely accurate. You can't do it all. Mm-hmm. And when I left the service and went into law school, that was probably the time where I sort of had the broadest sort of exposure, the broadest sort of interest. But then once I started practicing, the time constraints were such that I realized, I'm not going to be able to do it all anymore. I might as well just concentrate on that which I like the most, which is card tricks. And so I actually made a pretty conscious decision to concentrate almost exclusively on card tricks. Every now and then I'll look at something else, but it's not sort of the broad spectrum of close-up magic that I was used to.
And just one quick question here before we go our ways is, people are always wondering what's in the future. So what is in the future for John Bannon? Is where is Cardzilla somewhere in there? We've all talked about that, and that is actually brought up on the DVD set.
Yeah, you have to watch the DVD to find out about that one. I have a lot of projects going on. Most recently, a lot of them have sort of come to the position or the place where I can actually think about putting them out or commercializing them. The fractal card tricks, for example, those were percolating for a long time, but it wasn't until all of the resources came available to do the whole DVD project that I was, and the special and all that I was able to put them out. And now with this DVD, that was important to me to put a lot of things into, like we said, the video space. But I've got other things in the works. I've got a project involving thought of card tricks. I've got some more fractal things going. A couple of other sort of contemplating an entry level kind of series where here's the first 6 tricks you should learn if you want to learn how to do card tricks, and here's why you should learn them this way.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know how much appeal that will have, but I know over the years I've had like my partners at work say, "Hey, my 14-year-old is really interested in card magic. Where should he start?" And frankly, there's no good place to start. There's no good place to start from zero.
Right.
There's lots of places to start from having done it for a while.
Right.
Like the Michael Amar, the Royal Roads and all that. But where do you start from zero?
Yeah.
And there are not a lot of good places for that.
Well, thank you very much, John, for your input on these DVDs. I really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your time and talking about these. So we look forward to seeing you, and look forward to seeing you in Blackpool very soon. Okay, well, thanks for having me and giving me the opportunity to talk about it. It was a fun project. It was a lot of fun working with Owen and the Big Blind Media guys. Yeah, and they're great DVDs, great production, great content. So make sure you check out Bullets After Dark.